We have a time window and a frame. Like Professor Shibajo said, he checks on me regularly to find if my wife is still in the country. And my children, at least one of my last born is still in the country. And he has assured me, not only himself, quite a number of people who know me, we've worked together through the years. Pastor Wale is there. I mean, Bishop Olale, Femi Paul, a lot of my people who are here. That the day they just check and they discover that I have left Nigeria, they will be on the next flight out. And you see, we may laugh, but what we don't realize is that we've studied these things, and we studied the movement. We understand what Nigeria is facing. Nigeria itself does not understand what it's facing in its highest places. I can speak with authority. And the fact is, if the present narrative is allowed to run its course uninterrupted, I can put anything down for anybody here that it won't be a matter of, well, if I'm even going to be very hopeful, I'll give us 36 months to 48 months before you can buy a house in VI here for 100,000 naira. I like that laugh, but I'm telling you something. We have watched people who never believed that these things will come to pass in the places where they lived. I have many of them as my friends. My friend that I call General Hayab, who came in here, really and truly, he will tell you we have combed northern Nigeria. There's somebody who's supposed to be here with us today who cannot be here, an elder from the northeast. His house in Maiduguri, lovely home. He can't live there. He lives in Abuja right now. He's rented a property. Nobody would even buy his property because they know he dare not wait. They've tried to kill him 3 times. And if Baba could not make it today, one of his daughters, one of the ladies that we work together, one of the women who's been very instrumental, I've been on their board. Gabasawa means Women of the Northeast. I've been on their board for 12 years. Malama Doris, her father is a reverend gentleman, Wakshama, in Maiduguri. Even her father is living with her in Lagos now. Stand up, Doris, let them just recognize you quickly. A short while ago, when there were rumors that children were kidnapped in Chibok and nobody, was being handled politically, she came to my office and said, look, you can't sit down again and let this thing pass. So we put together a quick plan, and we were able to extract all the girls who escaped from Chibok. At that time, there were 4 of them. 6 of the girls who escaped from Chibok, we were able to track them down. And then with about 30-something of the mothers, some of them were already going mad. Many had high blood pressure that was unimaginable. She was the one who had to go with scouts for one of our extraction programs. And when I say extraction, it means they had to go from hamlet to hamlet where the families were, picking up the mothers. Some of them were almost deranged, and then brought them over to the extraction point where security services tried to stop. But fortunately, most of us, she has a UN card, and she was able to get through it because of the UN status of the NGO. And when the flight, we took a flight to flew them to Abuja. Security was trailing them to Abuja. And when they got to Abuja, they thought it was okay and all that. And then we flew them into Lagos from there. In the airport, without telling anybody anything, the airport staff were asking us, who are these women? Why are they so sad? We said, no, they're here for some programs. They said, no, don't tell us these women are sad. They didn't need to talk. When we applied medicals, and if you saw some of the pictures there, we had to call for some of our partners from the US. They were in the Philippines at that time for trauma counseling, because proper trauma counseling is very little understood here. Like some of the girls that were rescued, that they gave to us, that came over to us, that we're trying to rehabilitate, some of them have even been turned by the Boko Haram. And then they released them to go back. Some of them almost compromised some of our operations. They will go back and be phoning their Boko Haram people that this is the location where we're keeping and debriefing the ones that we still have some of them in our custody. I'm only saying this in this environment because, frankly speaking, a few months from now, it doesn't matter whatever we say anymore. In those days, we couldn't talk publicly, but now we might as well talk publicly. So that when somebody is heading for the border in your speedboat, in your jeep, you will remember that somebody told you and you refused to join us to stop it from happening. Bottom line is that one of the girls came to us telling us, no, did they rape you? She says, no. They were so nice, they were this, they were that. And by the Spirit, I said to her, I said, this girl is lying through her teeth. And because she is very compassionate, she was crying out, why are you being so tough? And I said, no, I'm not being tough. Let them take her for medicals. Not only was she pregnant, she was HIV positive. So when the federal government began to talk about releasing the girls and negotiating, I was asking them, do you really know what this thing is? And one of the reasons why the PhD people came to talk to you about concatenation is that what Nigeria is facing can only be solved by an algorithm. You know, like the Rubik's Cube. The Rubik's Cube, if somebody doesn't tell you how to solve it, you can play with the Rubik's Cube for 50 years and never solve it. Now, what Nigeria is facing is peculiar. What we're calling the resurgence of terrorism, like he said, we should stop calling it religious disturbance. We need to isolate it for what it is. And of the truth, with the amount of work we've done in 14 years, we made a presentation in the US Congress auditorium a while ago. It will be shameful if part of what we have shared with foreigners is what they end up refining and putting on a digital platform to solve the problem in their own countries. And then Nigeria ends up breaking up because we just couldn't hack it. So I want to point out one or two things that nonviolence can do and then talk about NOVAD quickly. First of all, Nigeria does not have a consistent CT policy. I also serve as the capacity as Special Advisor Counter-Terrorism to the President. When Nigeria got the FTO designation on Boko Haram, it was because 4 years earlier, we had started working towards it. We hosted a congressional team from America in Nigeria here. We had to do a whole lot of work. They didn't even want the current president to be the one to appear at the congressional hearing, because there's a difference between religious hearings and congressional hearings in Washington. We had to reinvent the current president as a statesman for them to admit and accept that he would even appear. And let me tell people here, when we got to Washington, one of the things that amazed us, somebody out there had hired 22 professors. They had paid them to write opinions that the Boko Haram was a freedom fighting group. And so all American policies was going to help to fund Boko Haram. Anybody who can go and cross-check on these things, I tell you they are true. We had meetings there with the different arms of their government, with the CIA, with the FBI, Homeland Security, Justice Department. The only person that we met with was the State Department that kept insisting that Boko Haram was harmless. And when we got to Congress and we listened to the professors talk about Nigeria, our mouths were open, wondering, is this fiction or reality? But you see, if we had not gotten the FTO then, I wonder where Nigeria would be by now. It was about the only strategic move that we could make at that time that slowed down the killing of people. If my friend Hayab was to join me here and the people that we work in northern Nigeria here together, I have to tell you the people who collaborated with us through the years, including some of who are seated in this space today, to tell you how many lives have been saved, people who will have been slaughtered. You won't believe it. So number one, we need to persuade Nigeria to have a CT, a counter-terrorism policy. And the reason why we don't have is because the average Nigerian does not know this. There's no single definition of terrorism that is acceptable across the world. So the terrorist list of the US is different from that of the UK, is different from that of the countries in the Middle East. Now, in Nigeria, terrorism is if a man slaps his wife. So there are lawyers here, they know that we need to not only work on that, we need to get a consistent counter-terrorism policy. Nigeria's case is serious because the infiltration is in high places. I don't bother to hide this anymore. In those days, we used to say it quietly. But if anybody is thinking that we have an army that can defend us, you are deluded because people are not giving you the real reports. One of the soldiers in the war front called me this morning. He had just been wounded. They were attacked by the Boko Haram while they were going to go and do S&T supplies, one of my boys. And he just phoned me that they transferred them to Kaduna and they were treating them and that They are delaying them because they said they needed money to pay for some things. So I said, isn't the Nigerian Army going to cover that? He said the IHL, I don't know what they called it. He said something doesn't cover this particular so and so. So I said, let me verify first of all. But the morale is bad. I have recordings of people from the war front. We are monitoring what is going on left, right, and center, and we keep pointing out that somebody somewhere is selling Nigeria a pipe dream. And the only way we can handle this thing is for us to quickly start what we call non-violence for African development. Why? Let me tidy this up in a few minutes. The only reason why I understand this thing is because I was fortunate to be under the tutelage when Baroness Cox, she was then Deputy Speaker of the House of Lords in the UK, came in the year 2001. She brought a special advisor with her who was a Hafiz. He was formerly a terrorist. He got converted and he spent about 18 months breaking down for me the algorithm behind this satanic thing. It's beyond religion, it's not religious. The more people talk religion, the more you fuel it. It's designed to feed on religion. So the wisdom by which it has to be neutralized cannot be a religious platform. So for 18 months, he broke it down, showed me the patterns. He didn't need to look at the Quran, he could recite it. He speaks Arabic, he's from the Middle East, although he's right now living in the Western world. And when he explained it to me, we watched step by step in Nigeria, everything he explained. I was in Riyom in 2001 when he pointed out what will happen in Jos next. And no matter the amount of warnings, the amount of blood that has been shed in Jos could have been prevented. Now, as this front is moving forward here, don't delude yourself. Lagos, the people you're dealing with are very intelligent. They have foresight. They have moles in the business world. They have moles in different places. Unless we have an intelligence that is much more than theirs, I really cannot see Nigeria. So you see, I'd like to be very optimistic. I'm also a pastor, I would like to prophesy. But I have been with ministers. I mean, AB, please come quickly. How many years ago were we at a meeting with top-level ministers? And then they prophesied and told us it can never happen. Can you remember? 2003. Oh, this can never happen where I am. They were just coming in from the front at that time where they had seen slaughter. So they almost went physical with the ministers until we signaled and said, no, leave them. They don't know what they're saying. You see, it's easy to prophesy until you have seen the bloodshed. And the mindset behind it, it's intelligent, it's calculated, it moves slow sometimes, it moves fast, it changes its shape, but it has to be stopped, and it can be stopped. How? Non-violence for African development, we have found out through study. All over the world, the solution to this thing, the military solution to what we call Boko Haram, this generic, is between 14 and 18% maximum. If anybody thinks that it's violence that's going to cure it, it's a waste of time. And already my friend was pointing out a few things right now, that what Nigeria is fighting for right now is the conscience of the Muslim majority who will not kill. And the only platform on which we can all get together and work together is the platform for non-violence. So when we say non-violence for African development, what we are pointing out is that in ancient Africa, there are many models of non-violent resistance and non-violent communication. The only problem is that it was never documented. I've been working with the professors in recent times, and they're all coming up with all sorts of things that will help. But today, the primary reason why we did this is that we've called you here today for everybody to know one thing. We want you to partner with us to introduce non-violence across the country at a maximum scale with maximum speed. And once we can introduce this non-violence, we have many projects that we can follow up with. You will see the fruits very early. It will slow down the machinery and ultimately neutralize it. We're very sure of that. But we also know that we just have a little window in which to do this. The projects, if you take this with you, there are many things I don't need to say, but what used to be security material has been declassified. So if you actually read through everything in this brochure that we give to you, read it through to the end, including dialect engagement and all that, we want to let you know that you would be able to see why it is to your advantage to partner with us now and let us limit it and stop it afar than to allow the explosions to start. We know why the explosions have not yet started across certain regions. We are advocating regional defense structures. There are many things we have asked to put into place. I've met with former presidents of Nigeria over this. I've met with the serving president of Nigeria. I've met with many people, and I can assure you that neither religious quarters nor political quarters can solve this problem. If Nigeria is going to survive, if we're going to make it, this initiative has to come from the private sector, from pedestrian people, and it will gather because it will then work. One of the last thing I'm going to say before I leave is that when you read these things, this book, it's all spelled out there. I don't want to go on too long, but there's a CD that I just want to make available. Can I have a copy, please? Let me just show it quickly. After 14 years of concatenation, learning from former imams, attending meetings all over the world, checking out what this threat is, it is not religious. It is satanic. And for people who are in policy, people who are presidents, people who are in positions of authority, we made it an audio book so that it won't be too difficult for you to read, for you to absorb. There's a chapter 6 is on Nigeria, and you will find out that the root of what you call Boko Haram is not religious. It's actually an equation, an ancient equation. And if you don't have the facts and figures and you cannot concatenate, you will never detect it. Like I said, the only reason I can detect it is because a special advisor to many Western nations, I had the opportunity to serve under him and to be under his tutelage for a while. He himself called me yesterday and spoke about Lagos, spoke about Nigeria, and the fact that the window is closing. Because once the violence is accelerated to this other part and the signal goes, it will be very difficult for us to put a stop to it. So I'd advise anybody who partners with us, obviously, you get a copy of this audio book. I'd advise you to patiently, please, listen to it. Professor Anubo could listen to it, and he wrote a comment on it. It's in there. Finally, what are the kind of things that the MI needs as you put these things in mind? The projects we have on hand, some of them are academic, some of them are strategic. We have found out that people delight in paying school fees for children, but when there are strategic initiatives to stop this thing far away, the average person feels they can't really think that far to see that it's better to prevent than to allow it to keep creeping. So we've had a challenge through the years. I have some partners here. Pastor Wale is one of my, Papa Wigwe is here. There's so many people who are here that we've worked throughout the years quietly, to make sure that things happen. So I'll just read through some of this list. For instance, I'll just show you a little film right now. We looked at schools in Lagos. All the security lines and defenses that we have seen are based on traditional attack methods. And we have found out that we are going to be offering free consultancies to all schools in Lagos between January and middle of next year, free, to give them what we call threat assessments, to help them, to advise them to get perimeter defense systems. There are some of the schools in Lagos, and these are soft targets they're coming for. These are what they're going to be coming for. Because if they kill your grandchildren and your children, they maximize the impact of terror. What we found out is that one rocket launcher, we went to some of the schools, and we found out that you can even stand on the streets in some of the schools in Lagos with one rocket launcher and take out many children. You don't even have to take any troubles. So please look through our list. When we normally do our relief, we're doing mattresses, buckets, soap, rice, and all these bags of millet. All that is good, but we also need to put up a trauma counseling center with the proper kind of trauma counseling. We need to make sure, let me tell you the truth, the invisible people behind us are not here. You only see General Hayab because he's in control. There's an army behind us. All the information we have, all the things that we do, there are people whose names you will never hear, who are deep in the middle and have refused to move. We supply them sometimes with jeeps, with cars. We supply them with equipment to help us with the advanced warning systems that we help to set up in some of those parts of the country. So as you look through this, you find out that coastal buses. The last time, which state did you take motorcycles to, sir, on our behalf? Maiduguri. Yowa. The last set, how many motorcycles did we send? The last one? About 8 motorcycles. Yes. Yes. Good. So he will tell you we've had to distribute motorcycles, cars, jeeps, cars. By the way, Karatu called me during the week from Zamfara. We had to distribute things like we need what we call safe houses. The last time we brought in the mothers from Chibok and the girls who escaped, even to debrief them, to keep them safe was not easy. We need properties that we can actually design, defend, and make them permanent debriefing centers for those who have suffered trauma. We need a lot of stuff, but I have them all listed here. We need to keep our staff that are in the field, those who are not fled from Mubi, from the forefronts, we need to keep them there. We need to keep them up and running. So what am I saying right now is that we need partners, and we need you to remember this. I didn't come here to tell you to protect northern Nigeria. Papa Wigu will tell you that many years ago we used to say that. I'm only asking you, I came here to tell you to protect your children. And I pray that I am wrong, as I've always said, but I don't believe in wishful thinking. As long as the present narrative is allowed to follow its course with the kind of ignorance with which we are handling this thing at the national level, I don't see any other alternative. So quickly, just put that video and then allow me to take my leave.
So what we're doing, so that we can do it simultaneously, maybe we'll just do it table by table. A table can go out, take their tea, come back, and then while we have the tea, so we can save time. And we know some people want to have, so maybe if this first table can go out, if you want to help yourself for tea and coffee, you may please go out. The other thing we're going to talk about is the partnership form, which Reverend Ladi Thompson has just explained why we need partners. Partnership comes in different forms: your talent, your platform for operation, your business, your money, your homes. It could be your connections, whatever. What is interesting, I have a few expatriate clients, and when we have the opportunity to talk, they've told me that most of them have, I find it amazing, they say they have beach houses. You know, most of the international multinationals, they come in, you'll be wondering why they live in very nice, serene areas. They get beach houses. You know why? They have to explain to me that, Bumi, you know, in case there's any problem, they just go on their boat, they go to the next country. Some of them say, oh, by the way, for the elections, they already are going on compulsory leave for April, for 2 weeks break with their families. You see, it just tells us that if we don't solve these problems, nobody's going to solve it for us, because I can't tell them that I have such a contingency plan. I'm just trusting God. But the point I'm bringing out is that there are real issues, and I'm sure that's why we're all here today. If you'll be kind enough, you can fill in the forms that are inside your book, inside the brochures, and you can fill them out. And then we'll have somebody take the microphone to the tables to make comments so that we can wrap up by 12:30 as it is on the program. So I don't know if I can have someone can help us with the microphone, or I can do it myself. Excuse me.
My question is this. Okay, my name is Benga. How do we ensure that this information or message penetrates our worship centers, if I may use that word, churches? Because you found out that no matter what you see, no matter what you hear, by the time you get to church on Sunday, and your pastor said, yeah, you can get that CRV, you can get that Range Rover, everything you learned during the week goes off again. So for me, how do we get into the worship center, especially to the I'm trying to choose my word. I don't want to sound insulting, because the minds of Nigerians are actually in the hands of pastors and imams, if I can say that now.
Thank you very much.
Well, you didn't introduce yourself, though, so we can know.
He said he's Benga, he didn't know background.
Okay. All right. I will take, we're going to, if Reverend Ladi is here, or anyone on the front table of the speakers. But one thing I like to say, just because we're also in a gathering where we have a lot of honorable men of God, I think, I'm not sure it's just about the SUVs. I'm sure there are deeper messages that all our Reverend Fathers preach. It's just that there's something called selective retention. It's as if our congregation only hear about that part. There are many other deeper issues, but while we're at it, maybe if one or two people can, maybe we have one, I don't know if it's Reverend Laddie that will take the feedback, or if anybody on of the speakers would like to address this question. Well, let's get it right. Let's get it right. I think we need to be clear about who is going to respond, and that should be Reverend Ladia and the speakers today. Okay. So maybe what we'll do is, while he's out, we can maybe use the opportunity to hold that question, and if there's any other man of God in front that can take the question, we'll come back to you. So let's go on.
Okay. So my name is Tola Bugwade. I'm an accountant, and I was invited to this program by Mrs. Benite. And I would like to say that this is the reality of what is going on in Nigeria. And we in the Southwest, I would like to say, are just living in maybe fool's paradise or in dream world. Because I have 2 girls now in Jos, in school in Jos. And so we are always on, the security watch is high. The school is really particular because they want to protect the children and themselves. And in May, when the bomb went off, I was there. I had just passed the terminus when the bomb went off, and everybody from Lagos started calling, "Are you not coming back? Are you still alive?" I said, "Yes, I'm picking up my phone. Are you not coming back?" And I stayed there. The bomb went off on a Tuesday. I stayed there till Sunday, and another bomb went off on Saturday. And people started calling again. Another bomb has gone off, and you're still there. And so, but the reality is that it's coming to us down here, because we have seen it as their problem for so long. It's like them and us. And we've seen it as their problem for so long. And I have been asking God, you are so protecting us, you haven't allowed it to really penetrate here. And for me, this is just an answered prayer that there's something we can do actively to stop it from coming down. So I really thank Pastor Ladi for this, and I really appreciate all the work he has done so far and the insights that God has given him for this call. And I would wish that all of us take up this new work, because I believe that we were called. We do not come into the presence of God without being called. That's what the Bible said. So I believe we have been called into this, and there's work for us to do. And so we should not forget it when we live here. We should actively work and see what we can do. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comments. We really appreciate it. I think it's deep, like you said. Everybody here, I hope we're filling in our forms, because, I mean, like you said, people took a few hours off their businesses and their endeavors to come here. Definitely, we are going through very interesting times in Nigeria. There's no doubt about that. But, you know, I think, like you said, this gives us an opportunity to think, to strategize, and to prepare, and do our own little things. I found that nothing is too little with God, that God sees the heart. So thank you very much for that. We really must play our part. Comments, please? Any other comments?
Any other
if
comments?
not, yes, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sheson Adeboyejo. The question I would like to ask is the nonviolence for African development. From all I've heard here today, terrorism is not religious, as we are saying. But from my feeling about this gathering, it looks more Christian-like. If indeed that we have to collaborate with everyone to come on board and have a non-violence initiative like this, I think I don't know, I think there's a bias towards Christianity in this gathering. Where are our friends from the other faiths? Is there going to be an initiative, to bring them in, to have the same understanding? Because as we all know, not all Muslims are, violent. So my question really is that, is this organization going to be extended to incorporate like-minded Muslims as well? Thank you.
Thank you very much. Reverend Ladi, sorry, that question I have to direct it to you. I can give you the executive summary. He says, would Novak be presented to that Muslims, non-Christians have like minds? That is it an interdenominational movement? Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Let us tell you by execution that we never have any problems with the Muslims when it comes to this kind of things. The other day we were planning something that was going to be across religions, and General Hayab here had called the wife of the vice president. The Muslim women were prepared to mobilize. The last one I called you for. The greatest problem we had was the Christians. So the truth is, what we're doing is that we are building consensus step by step. Because when you have Christians on one side, it's very easy for the Muslims to agree together once they buy into the non-violence. But the most difficult constituency that we've always had is the Christian front, both at leadership level and down through the ranks. They're the most difficult to put together on one page. So this is just a build-up. We're going to have some other meetings. There are some presidents of some African countries whose thinking is like this, who will also be getting involved in what we're doing here. Thank you. Yes, please.
We are actually currently doing a program called We Are One Family Under God. This program brings together people of different faiths, knowing that we share one human family, whether you are a Jew, a Christian, or a Muslim. And people are appreciating it. But as Pastor have rightly said, one of the biggest challenges you have is the posture of some religious preachers, especially from the Christian faith. They conclude you are a coward when you speak about dialogue. They conclude you are a coward when you speak about tolerance. They want us to go fire for fire, and they will quote scripture and says, the kingdom of God suffer violence and people must take it by force. You see, there's a poor application when we use such verses. And what we are trying to say is that if you can educate Christians to understand the approach, then it will be easy for you to go to the Muslim. But let me quickly say this so that you don't get us wrong. The Muslims are more divided than we do. That is the truth. They are more divided than we do. But the beauty of them is that, to a large extent, you can have one person you will start as an inroad. That's why I was sharing with my sister a while ago, and I said, one thing many of us don't know, that the Boko Haram crisis have to do with also supremacy of Islam between the El Kanami Islam and the Islam that comes from the Fulani Hausa community. Because Islam was in Maiduguri among the El Kanuri people long before Islam came into the north. So they feel that Islam originally belongs to them, but now Islam is being controlled by a Fulani man called the Sultan, and he is not their leader. So this is another way of controversy. So you have to just carefully find a way of going in, educate people, and have more people on board so that you can solve the problem. And one reason about this is, if now we are approaching it non-violence, the Muslims that have been saying no to the extremism will come on our side.
Thank you.
But when you don't approach it that way, then every Muslim will assume you have concluded he's also a terrorist and he will not talk to you.
Thank you.
I believe we don't.
Thank you very much. We'll just take one or two more comments, and if not, we'll allow. We still have room for comments, feedback.
Okay, let me say something
Please
from my perspective. My name is Kelvin Efiok Otung. I was invited by Reverend Juliet, and she invited me because of the passion she knows I run with when it comes to nation building and the church. Apparently, we finished from the same class doing masters in divinity, and my thesis is the role of the church in redefining leadership and governance in an ailing democracy. The church, being its focus. And there's so much that we have to do as the church. Everybody has spoken here, and it's as if you've lifted one part of my thesis, to talk about, and for me, on getting here, you probably would have noticed that somewhere along the line, I got up, went behind, to just whisper, something to her. And this is my passion. I am committed to this. I'm sold out to this. This is what I am born to do. And by God's grace, God has laid it in my heart to work together with every Christian body, on a community base, to set up a network called Community Christian Fellowship Network International. The commander said something, and I always reiterate this, that we were first from God before we found geography. God said, let us make man in our own image, in our likeness. And he created man in his image and likeness, male and female, inside of him, and birthed us out, formed us before he placed us in geography. And so geography should not even come in between us. I don't understand languages. I really don't. I don't have language barrier. I don't have ethnicity barrier. I don't even know where people come from. First of all, we're all from one source. Amen. And this, I believe, when we take the question the brother asked earlier on, I believe will be solved when we take on this from our church basis. First of all, deconstructing denomination, because denomination is a mentality, it's a system, there's a spirit behind it, there's an ideology that rules denomination. We need to break denomination. It is not the church name, it's not, the church building, as it were. There's a system. In the place of study, the Spirit of God said to me, write the word denomination, cross out the second and the third letters, read it over, it becomes domination. And it says denomination is a tool in the hand of the devil to breed division in the body of Christ. And so we must deconstruct denomination. I support the fact that as Christians, we are the most difficult set of people, as it were, to bring into this initiative. So when we are able to level ourselves together, come together, there's a whole lot, I don't want to spend so much time on that, but when we deal with ourselves, the Muslims will fall into place. We have documentaries and all that addresses this. So I am already sold out to it.
Thank you very much. We really thank you for the passion with which you deliver that. Well, all good things must come to an end, but we know that this will still be the beginning of us making contributions. So I'd just like to call on Andrew Dada, Coordinator, MI International, to please just say thank you and wish you a very good day. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, that was to give us food for thought. It's not our intention to frighten people, but the reality of our position right now is that if we don't turn things around, then the future is very bleak for our children. Anyway, I'd like to, at this point, thank everybody for coming. And I'd like you to go away from this meeting to think about how you can take the steps to make NOVAD move forward and act as a counterbalance to the Boko Haram question. Thank you very much.